Agoraphobic Outreach. So, hello and welcome to Word from the Street from Expert Link and me, David Ford. So the term agoraphobia is often associated with the fear of outside spaces. But what it actually means is a type of anxiety disorder in which you fear and avoid places or situations that might cause you to panic or make you feel trapped, helpless, or even embarrassed. And outreach means programs and schemes that try to find people who need help or advice. So what I'm going to say is a generalization and not true for all, but you will know if this is true for you, and I would invite you to think about whether it is or not. I also don't want to take away from any of the amazing work that has been done by outreach teams working on the Everybody In campaign and all the amazing work that's been done since. But here's the but, because there is a but. So I was recently listening to Neil Oliver. He's a renowned archaeologist and presenter, and he was talking about society becoming almost agoraphobic because of the pandemic and lockdown. He used himself as a really good example, stating that he was relieved not to have to get a flight to London, and yet he was used to flying up to 3 or 4 times a week pre-pandemic. He talked about where society might be and the struggles that people will have post-pandemic when we're all so used to being at home and got comfortable with it, and also about having to build up that muscle memory again of going out and engaging and interacting with other human beings. I also watched a news report recently about house rental prices in London that would support his hypothesis. So the report said that rents were dropping because office workers did not want to go back to the old norm. They didn't want to go back into it because they got used to and were happy with working from home, or at least in part. So how does this all fit with outreach? So we've been recently having conversations prior to this, and we were talking about the effects of the pandemic on support services and on those that they support. And some of what I heard was pretty incredible. So it appears that in some cases, outreach workers are using the pandemic situation as an excuse not to go out. They're using other methods of connecting, such as phones and Zoom wherever possible. And I've heard how some organisations have managed to give phones to those that they support, which, to be honest, is absolutely fantastic. And whilst I applaud the ingenuity, I think there was a real issue with the lack of human connectivity. I listened to how services were engaging with people and how the perceptions of the services were and could be wildly different to reality for some. So a couple of really good examples of this were, firstly, when drug and alcohol outreach services were engaging with someone remotely, and upon asking if the person was using, like drugs, being told no. But if the support worker had been physically engaged with that person, they would have seen that in reality that wasn't true. And before you blame them, think it's about addiction. I also heard of an extremely vulnerable woman who was being engaged with remotely, and in her world, the answer to the question, is everything okay? Are you managing all right? Was yes, I'm fine. Because that was her belief in her world. And yet if you or I or anybody else would have been there, it would have been blindingly obvious that she needed pretty intense support to manage. So who's to blame for this? Well, certainly not the outreach workers and probably not the service providers. I genuinely think that the blame doesn't lie with anybody, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a responsibility to act. We do. My part in taking responsibility is to raise awareness around this issue and admit where I am. And yes, I become comfortable at home and I'm anxious about getting out there into the real world. But aren't you? Services need to take responsibility by recognising that this could be an issue now and further down the line. And outreach workers need to reflect on their behaviour and their work patterns to see if they are indeed suffering. And if they are, well, then it's good to talk. So all of this is going to take honest conversations between and with ourselves. But we need to have them and come up with ways to support services and their outreach teams to overcome these challenges. The very last thing that we need is an outreach workforce across the country not being able to do effective outreach because of mental illness. So again, let's not blame anyone. Let's recognise that this is a potential issue and start working and planning to support people. I'm David Ford. This has been Conversations on Co-Production. If you like what you've heard today, please hit the thumbs button. It helps the algorithms to share this. And while you're down there hitting the thumbs up, please hit that subscribe button. But until next time, I love you all. Stay safe.
Don't give up.